What if everything you were taught about hard work is actually keeping you from getting rich? That sounds harsh. It's meant to. In the spirit of Charlie Munger, who taught people to think with models, not slogans, this is the blunt reset you need. Sweat and long hours are not the same thing as strategy. You can be exhausted and still bankrupt of opportunity. You can be industrious and still be poor. The difference is not how much you grind. It's where you point the grind. Picture a man in a dim mine, swinging his pick with everything he has. He works until his arms tremble, he goes home raw and dirty, and he returns the next day to swing again. Now imagine he's in a mine that contains coal when the market wants lithium. No matter how many rocks he smashes, no matter how many extra shifts he takes, the wrong mine yields the wrong fortune. Sweat can dig you into a grave of fatigue or dig you a well to water a far-reaching orchard. Direction matters more than effort. Or picture a treadmill. You step on because you believe motion equals progress. The belt moves faster, you run harder, and you breathe heavier. The numbers on your watch say you've done more, but after an hour your legs scream and you've moved nowhere new. Effort without direction is a treadmill. It feels noble. It feels deserved. It feels like everything. But the machine only rewards hours, not outcomes. This is the core claim behind the title you just heard. Charlie Munger reveals why working more isn't the path to riches. Not as a moral indictment, but as a practical model for how the world rewards value. Munger's mental models prize asymmetry, leverage, and correct decision-making over brute force. He would ask, where does your time actually land? Does it compound? Does it scale? Or does it leak away through small bad choices, fatigue, and misdirected energy? If this is hitting close to home, if you're tired of trading every hour for a marginal paycheck, stay with me. If you want fewer false starts and more leverage, hit subscribe. This series will teach mental models, not pep talks. Let's diagnose the problem clearly and practically. There are three brutal mechanics behind the myth of work more, get rich. First, time is non-scalable. You have 24 hours. So does everyone else. You can trade those hours for money, but the market sells that labor at a near linear rate. Double the hours, roughly double the pay, minus exhaustion, mistakes, and the cost of wear. You cannot multiply hours the way you multiply money. You can multiply money by putting it into systems that return more than you could earn alone. You can multiply your influence with leverage. That is the gap the grind doesn't close. Second, decision quality collapses under fatigue. When you're tired, you make small, costly mistakes. You buy convenience, not value. You say yes to unnecessary meetings, expensive takeout, and quick fixes. These micro-decisions compound. One late-night impulse purchase, one skipped research session, one small lapse in discipline. They add up silently and relentlessly. The hidden cost of overwork is not just the hours you lose, but the poorer choices those hours produce. Third, markets reward asymmetric outcomes. The labor market pays for time. Markets in entrepreneurship pay for decisions that scale, for asymmetric bets where the upside far exceeds the downside. This is where one right move beats 1,000 hard moves. A single product that gains traction, a single skill that opens doors, a small investment that compounds. Those are asymmetries. If you're only selling your hours, you're capped. If you design for asymmetry, you leave the cap behind. None of this says, don't work. It says, Stop confusing motion with value. Stop measuring effort by hours. Work is a vehicle. If you steer it into a dead end, more fuel doesn't help. To make this concrete, let's look at the overtime trap. You pick up extra hours at $25 an hour. You do it for a year, you run yourself ragged. At the end of 12 months, you've earned more cash, yes. But what did those extra hours cost you in learning time, in networking, in developing skills that might generate passive returns or leverage? If those overtime hours crowded out a book you would have read, a course you would have taken, or 2 evenings a week of practicing a marketable skill, you may have traded a modest short-term gain for a permanently lower trajectory. Fatigue breeds bad micro-decisions. You reach for the quick convenience purchase. You pay a premium for time you don't have. You skip the budget and let subscriptions slip by. You say yes to immediate income opportunities that drain attention from investing in scalable activities. Those little leaks, monthly fees here, impulse buys there, are the financial equivalent of a slow puncture. Overwork disguises them. Busy people rationalize wasted money as the cost of deserving comfort. It's a lie the worst predators in finance tell those who look successful but are fragile. I want you to think of 2 people. Person A is reliable, works long shifts, saves sometimes, and lives by a pattern of incremental improvements that depends on time. Person B works smart. Early in their career, they invested in a scarce skill, set up a small product that sold repeatedly, and automated savings into investments. Person A trades life for money every hour. Person B puts effort up front to build something that earns while they sleep. Which one is more likely to reach financial freedom? The answer is painfully obvious, yet most people default to Person A's model because it feels safer, more honorable, and less risky in the short run. This is where the wrong mine analogy lands hard. Mining, in this sense, is your chosen economic direction, the field you beat at every day. You can be the best miner in this town and still never find the vein you need. You can hustle until your hands blister and still be in the wrong mine. Direction beats effort, always. Now, what is asymmetry? Think of it as a lever that turns little inputs into large outputs. A single software product can serve 1 million people. One patent can alter an industry. A single decision to learn a high-leverage skill, coding, copywriting, sales, can open doors to exponential earnings. The leverage might come from capital, technology, systems, or people. The point is simple. Some actions are powerful. Most are not. If you want to escape the hour for dollar trap, you must hunt for the powerful actions. How do you hunt for them? You start with thinking time. You schedule thinking like a meeting you cannot cancel. That sounds small, but it's a psychological shift. You stop being a slave to tasks and start being an architect of direction. When you carve out 2 hours a week to deliberately design your life, study, test ideas, build a small product, you create the conditions for asymmetry. If those 2 hours are applied to the right problem, they can change your financial future far more than 50 overtime hours. The market itself is indifferent. It rewards correctness and scale. Correct decisions that scale will be compensated disproportionately. But the market also punishes mistakes in a way that a treadmill can't. A wrong bet compounded many times, through early spending on lifestyle inflation, through trusting flattering offers from predators, can wipe gains and morale. Early success is dangerous because it lulls you into thinking you have mastered a system you barely understand. Predators, people selling unnecessary services, bad investment schemes, or overpriced lifestyle upgrades, smell new money and prey on it. Arrogance and trust without verification are the deadliest combination. Let me give you an example that isn't hypothetical. Imagine a young professional named Maya. She goes from modest living to a decent promotion. Her salary jumps. Friends celebrate. She upgrades to a more expensive apartment, a luxury car lease, and a level of consumption that eats the salary increase and leaves her precarious. Within 3 years, a layoff or emergency puts her into crisis. The path she chose, spending early on experience and image, created fragility, not strength. That's a common story. The psychology of success is tricky. Instant reward creates a narrative of worth that money can buy, and habits change before financial footing stabilizes. Contrast Maya with Javier. Early in his career, when he received his first increase, he did not change his lifestyle. He automated a portion of the increase into investments, bought tools to build a side project, and spent time learning a niche skill. He kept his living small and his options wide. That difference in response to success is the hinge of future outcomes. Both work hard. Both get raises. One uses success to build leverage. The other uses success to fund immediate comfort and curves toward fragility. Direction again. Why do smart people still fall into the overtime trap? Because the world serves a steady diet of incentives that favor motion over strategy. Employers reward visible busyness. Our culture confuses being overwhelmed with being important, and humans are wired for immediate gratification. The mind is biologically optimized to avoid pain today, not to maximize compounding decades from now. That's why rules and protocols matter. You need structures to protect you from your short-term impulses. This is the practical, non-ideological reason to adopt a protocol, a set of simple rules that push you toward a symmetry, protect your gains, and make your time an ally instead of an expense. I call it a protocol frio. 5 cold, unemotional principles that keep you honest even when you're tired. They sound small. They're not glamorous, but they're the backbone of compounding advantage. Before I name them, let's be clear. This is not a promise of instant wealth. It is a framework rooted in probability, leverage, and rational behavior. It's about stacking odds, removing moronic choices, and making sure your hours are invested in the activities that can scale. It's also about protection, because the market is indifferent, and success without guardrails is a temptation-laden minefield. So what are the 5 principles at a glance? First, spend far less than you imagine you can. Second, treat time as an ally, not a currency. Invest it deliberately. Third, avoid stupidity. Set rules to prevent the worst mistakes. Fourth, embrace disciplined repetition. Small routine actions compound into sizable advantages. Fifth, protect gains from yourself. Use guardrails, automation, and accountability to prevent early victories from dissolving into waste. Let's pause on the first 3 a bit before we move on, because they expose much of the invisible leakage in most people's finances. Spend far less than you imagine you can. This is not asceticism. It's strategic insulation. When you underconsume relative to your means, you create optionality, the ability to invest, to take risks that might pay off, to weather emergencies without panic. Underconsumption is not a virtue for virtue's sake. It is a lever that buys you time and choices. Practically, it looks like automating savings, cutting recurring costs you don't use, and being suspicious of upgrades that confer status but little function. Again, don't confuse frugality with deprivation. This is about deploying your money to create leverage, not about denying joyful living. Indefinitely. Treat time as an ally, not a currency. Here's what most people do. They treat hours as a bank account to be spent. They trade evenings for take-home cash and then complain they never had time to learn the skill that would change their life. Instead, schedule thinking like a non-negotiable appointment. Protect blocks of time for study, creation, and systems building. Short, disciplined sprints of focused work on something that scales will outperform random extra shifts. The goal is to convert hours into skills, connections, and products that return more hours or money than you put in. Avoid stupidity. Stupidity is not lack of intelligence, it's predictable, avoidable error. Most financial ruin is not caused by brilliant mistakes, but by dumb ones. Buying into a flashy promise, failing to read a contract, letting emotion guide a market decision. You can reduce stupidity dramatically with rules. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. Never sign without reading. Never put short-term consumption before an emergency fund. Use checklists. They sound mechanical, but they work. The absence of a simple rule is where complex disasters grow. Now, we haven't yet dug into repetition and protection. Those are the principles that turn rules into resilient systems. Repetition is the engine of compounding. Doing simple things well, repeatedly, creates habits that feed growth. Protection keeps gains from evaporating at the first taste of success. We'll unpack both with tactical steps shortly. For now, hold this in your mind. Direction matters more than effort. Asymmetric moves beat linear slog, and your hours are precious because they are limited. The right first moves are not dramatic. They are deliberate. They are boring until they work. And when they do, they can change everything. There's another angle people miss, the micro cost of decision fatigue. It's not just one big mistake that ruins you, it's the slow creep of many small choices made while tired. Imagine your willpower as a battery. Long hours depleted. Depleted willpower makes you susceptible to convenience spending, to saying yes to superficial social obligations, to not reading the fine print. That's why working more can be a wealth-destroying strategy. It erodes the very faculties you need to make the high-leverage decisions that create wealth. One of the most effective defenses is automation. Automation removes you from the loop when you are weak. Automatic transfers into savings, automatic investments, and automatic payments to reduce debt turn a finite human battery into a machine of compounding advantage. Systems are not sexy. They are boring and relentless and undefeated by fatigue. Build them first, but automation alone is not enough. You also need to build asymmetric skills, the capabilities that multiply your value when combined with systems. These are often rare, valuable skills that the market rewards beyond ours. Persuasive writing, sales, product thinking, coding, strategic negotiation. The market pays a premium for skill plus reach. You can trade hours in a law office and earn a salary, or you can spend time learning to create a template, a product, or an approach that sells many copies. The first option is capped. The second is scalable. Now consider the psychology of early success again, because this is where many people fall off the rails. When you do find a lever that works, maybe a side product, maybe a promotion, you must be cold about the next steps. Do not inflate your lifestyle the moment the money flows. Guard the gains. Check for predators. Reinvest in building the next lever. This requires a mental model of success as a test, not as a reward. Treat the first win as evidence of a principle that should be reinforced, not as proof you have arrived. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, this sounds good in theory, but how do I start? Start with 3 small tactical actions you can take today that cost little time and no drama. First, automate 10% of any new income increase into a separate account marked only for investment or product development. Second, schedule 2 hours this week, blocked and protected, for reading a book or taking a course that builds a high-leverage skill. Third, identify 1 recurring cost you can cancel right now and move that money into an automated investment. Small, boring, repeatable moves are the currency of long-term advantage. These moves sound almost trivial. Good. The world is built so that small, trivial habits are the scaffolding of lasting success. The grind sells drama. Systems sell outcomes. We've diagnosed the myth, exposed the mechanics, and sketched the beginning of a protocol. But the story is not yet complete. There is a harder truth to face about the market. It is not only indifferent, it is asymmetrically rewarding and asymmetrically punishable. The same structures that can amplify your success can also accelerate your downfall if you lack guardrails. That's why the next section, the deep dive into repetition and protection, matters more than your current feelings about sacrifice. Discipline without intelligence wastes life. Intelligence without discipline fritters advantage away. Before we go further, I want you to picture where you are right now. Not the generic viewer who works long hours, but you. Where is your time going? Where are the small leaks? What are the habits you defend as necessary that are actually optional? Which of your skills scales, which doesn't? Ask those questions honestly. This is not an exercise in shame. It is an inventory. Inventory creates options. There is one last piece to frame before we move to the nuts and bolts of the protocol. Asymmetry demands patience. Many people chase a jackpot. They expect an immediate payoff for a bold move. That's gambling, not strategy. Asymmetry is about odds, not certainty. You tilt the odds in your favor by repetition, learning faster than your peers, and by protecting against catastrophic loss. Over time, small favorable odds compounded produce a dominant lead. The person who treats time as an ally invests in learning, tests repeatedly, and scales the few things that show promise. They do not expect fireworks overnight. They expect steady accumulation. We are now at a crucial pivot. You know why working more can fail you. Limited hours, decision fatigue, lifestyle inflation, and an indifferent market that favors asymmetry. You also know the outlines of a better way. Seek leverage, automate defenses, build scalable skills, and adopt simple rules that limit stupidity. What comes next is the practical heart of this message. The full tactical unpacking of the 5-point protocol, the exact steps, the checklists, the traps to avoid after early wins, and the way to set up your life so your hours work for you rather than you working for hours. We will go through each principle with examples you can implement immediately, with templates for automation, and with the behavioral guardrails that keep early success from turning into early ruin. We will also explore the emotional side, how to stay patient when the rewards are slow, how to resist social pressure to spend, and how to turn boring discipline into an identity that protects future freedom. But before we open that toolbox, let me leave you with one uncomfortable question. If your life in 5 years looks exactly like your life now, same amount of savings, same career trajectory, same schedule, will you be satisfied? If the honest answer is no, then the direction needs changing. The next part will teach you the how. Exact actions, thought patterns, and simple routines you can implement this week that are disproportionately likely to move you toward real leverage. Now we get to the parts you can use today, the tactical heart of the protocol. The first 3 principles you heard are necessary, but they are not sufficient unless you convert them into habit. That's where repetition and protection come in, boring, relentless mechanics that create compounding advantage and keep you from spending your way into fragility the moment you taste success. I'll walk you through each principle again, this time with exact behaviors, simple scripts, and a 90-day plan that takes the abstract into the concrete. Principle 4. Disciplined repetition. Repetition is the engine of compounding. It is not glamorous. It is not dramatic. It is surgical. If you want a symmetry to work for you, you must do the small things well, again and again, until they produce outsized results. What does disciplined repetition look like in practice? 5 specific habits. First habit, automatic investing. Set up a recurring transfer from your paycheck or checking account into investments on the same day money arrives. Make it invisible, out of sight, out of emotional negotiation. Start with an amount you can sustain. If that's 1%, fine. If that's 10%, even better. The percentage matters less than consistency. The point, you want a machine that converts earned income into future optionality without asking your tired brain to make a decision each month. Second habit, weekly thinking hours. Block the same 2 hours every week for deliberate thinking. No inbox, no meetings, and no ads. Use that time to read books, test a side idea, practice a skill, or refine a product. Don't compromise that block for short-term gain. If your week gets hijacked, you lose leverage in exchange for momentary relief. Protect thinking time like you protect your family commitments. Third habit, the monthly review. Once a month, do a 30-minute financial health check. Savings rate, recurring charges, one discretionary expense to cut, one investment or learning decision to increase. This small cadence prevents slow leaks from becoming crises. It surfaces lifestyle creep early, so you can correct course before bad habits compound. Fourth habit, the one small build sprint. Every 60 days, ship something, even if it's tiny. A template, a short course, a minimal consulting offering, a digital product, a revised LinkedIn pitch. The idea is to make building a muscle rather than a fantasy. Iteration beats perfection. Small launches teach you what scales. Fifth habit, nightly micro-reflection. Spend 5 minutes before bed answering 2 questions in a notebook. What did I learn today that improves leverage? What one small thing will I do tomorrow to protect or grow my advantage? This keeps your mind oriented toward improvement rather than distraction. Those 5 habits, repeated without drama, are the practical form of repetition. They protect against the slow erosion of gain through laziness, pride, or fatigue. Principle 5. Protect the gains from yourself. The most dangerous time is early success. When the money flows, habits often change faster than the balance sheet. The prescription is blunt. Set guardrails that enforce restraint even when the temptation is loud. Here are precise guardrails to implement this week. First guardrail: automatic allocation of any income increase. Every time your pay goes up, direct a fixed portion. Start with 50% of the increase into savings and building activities before you ever see it. If your raise is $500 a month, $250 immediately goes into an investment or product fund and never touches discretionary cash. The math is simple. If you never internalize the new normal of higher spending, your lifestyle stays lean and your options grow. Second guardrail: the 48-hour rule for big purchases. For any non-essential purchase over a threshold you set, for many, $200, $500, wait 48 hours. Use that cooling period to ask, will this increase optionality or status? If it's status, it probably costs leverage. If it increases options, tools, learning, income-generating assets, then consider it. A 48-hour rule kills impulse upgrades and protects you from decision fatigue bargains. Third guardrail: public accountability. Tell one sober, pragmatic friend or partner your savings rule and your guardrail thresholds. Ask them to call you out. Social norms matter. When the herd applauds the upgrade, your accountability friend can be a steady corrective voice. Fourth guardrail: minimum liquidity floor. Keep an emergency buffer, 3 months of basic expenses at minimum, more if your work is volatile. This is not financial theater. This is the margin of safety that allows you to experiment without catastrophic downside. When the first lever begins to show promise, you'll be glad you can make patient choices rather than panic sell. Fifth guardrail: the don't prove it principle. When something goes right, assume luck played a role until you have repeated success. Use the early win to test and reinforce, not to celebrate with irreversible spending. Reinvest a significant portion back into the lever that worked. This is how small wins convert into durable advantage. Now let's shift from rules to the how of generating leverage. How to intentionally create the asymmetric moves that beat the overtime treadmill. There are 4 primary sources of leverage: skills that scale, capital that works for you, systems and products, and network effects. Each is accessible, but each requires different time and discipline trade-offs. Skills that scale are not exotic. They are distinctive combinations of competence and scarcity. Examples: a salesperson who can close large recurring corporate contracts, a software developer who can build automation tools and productize them, a copywriter who consistently sells high-value offers. To convert a skill into leverage, do 3 things. Focus deeply on a narrow niche for 6 months, document what works, and then package it into repeatable services or products. Narrow focus magnifies learning speed. Documentation turns tacit skill into teachable steps. Packaging converts hours into multiples. Capital that works for you is simply capital deployed with patience and rules. I am not prescribing investments. I am describing behavior, the habit: save reliably, invest consistently, and avoid trying to time the market. Use passive, low-cost vehicles if you want to minimize attention and reduce the temptation to trade. If you choose active investments, set strict position limits and checklists to prevent emotional bets. The key is to treat capital as an engine of optionality, not a ticket to instant status. Systems and products give you scale. Building a small product, an ebook, a template, a SaaS trial, can multiply 1 hour of work into many hours of income. The pattern is simple. Identify a repeatable need, build a minimally viable solution, sell it once, iterate, and then automate the sales funnel. You don't have to invent the next unicorn. You only need a product that reliably solves a narrow problem for a definable audience. Network effects multiply reach. They are slower, but they are durable. Serve a small group well and ask them to share. Build one freemium tool or one generous guide that helps a friend, and your reputation will carry your lever further than you can with hours alone. Networks are compounders. Tandem, all 4 levers can be combined. A repeatable skill packaged as a product and sold through a small system to a growing network is the textbook asymmetry. This is where the tired, overworked person rarely goes, because building these levers requires patience, thought, and a refusal to prioritize immediate finances over long-term optionality. You asked for templates and scripts. Here are practical, repeatable scripts you can implement in the next 7 days. Script 1, the 7-day automation sprint. Day 1, open a new savings investment account separate from checking. Day 2, set up an automatic transfer of 5 to 10% of your paycheck to that account. Day 3, list all monthly subscriptions and cancel one that delivers low value. Day 4, schedule 2 hours next week in your calendar labeled Strategic Work, Do Not Cancel. Day 5, set up an automatic transfer for any income increase to route 50% into the savings investment account. Day 6, find a small course or book on a high-leverage skill and enroll or buy. Day 7, write a 1-page plan for a 60-day small build. Topic, customer, simple MVP. Script 2, the decision stop checklist. Before any purchase or business commitment over exceeds your threshold, run through 3 questions. Does this increase options? Can I afford this without touching my emergency buffer? If this fails, can I recover without catastrophic loss? If the answer to any is no, delay and reassess. This simple 3-question filter will cut off many avoidable errors born of fatigue or ego. Script 3, the 90-day leverage plan. Week 1, automated savings set and 2 hours weekly scheduled. Weeks 2 to 4, focus on skill acquisition. Read 1 book, complete 1 course module, practice 3x per week. Weeks 5 and 8, build a minimal product or service offering. Week 9, pilot it with 5 customers or clients. Weeks 10 to 12, iterate based on feedback and automate the sales process. Set up recurring invoices, a landing page, or a simple payment link. This plan prioritizes repeated action over big bets. Now, a few practical numerical guidelines. These are rules of thumb, not commandments. Aim to save at least 10% of gross income early on and increase that rate with each income bump. Aim for an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Automate at least 1 investment transfer per month. Schedule 2 hours weekly of committed learning or product work. These numbers are conservative enough to be reachable and aggressive enough to matter. Next, a checklist you can print and tape to your desk. The kind of cold, unemotional list a Munger-style mind would insist on. Daily, protect 1 thinking block. Track 1 small learning outcome. Note 1 micro decision, saved through automation. weekly. 2 hours of focused skill work. Cancel or evaluate one recurring cost every month. Review top 3 priorities. Monthly. Transfer pre-decided percentage to investments. Run one, what would I buy if I had to rebuild from scratch? Audit of your tools and subscriptions. Quarterly. Evaluate progress on one product or service. Test one new distribution channel. Check that emergency fund still covers 3 months. On any income increase, immediately lock away a fixed portion. Treat the rest as potential leverage. Alongside this checklist, build a short stupidity prevention checklist for major financial or business decisions. What to look for before signing anything or committing capital. Items. Read the contract fully. Ask for a referral from an independent source. Point to at least 2 contrary scenarios that would make this a bad move. Avoid leverage bets if you can't afford the loss emotionally, and sleep on it for 48 hours. Again, rules beat moods. Now let's talk about the emotional architecture you need to maintain these systems. Rational models crash when human emotions invade at scale. You will feel envy. You will feel pressure to display status. You will face people who will tell you success requires visible consumption. You will face opportunities that flatter and cost you focus. Build an emotional protocol. First, reframe sacrifice as tactical, not moral. Sacrifice is not punishment. It is investment. When you skip a flashy upgrade, tell yourself, I am buying optionality. Attach an identity to patience. You are someone who builds quietly. Second, build small rituals that reward restraint. Instead of buying a car when you get a raise, plan a low-cost celebration that marks progress without derailing strategy. A modest dinner, a weekend hike, or a short course that sharpens skill. Reward consistently so patience doesn't feel like deprivation. Third, cultivate a decay alarm. Quarterly, record 3 signs that indicate lifestyle creep. Recurring subscription increases, a growing number of social expenses, or new debt for depreciating goods. If any alarm triggers, immediately reverse the last discretionary change. Fourth, practice inversion, an idea in the spirit of Munger. Ask, how could this go wrong? Instead of asking, how can I win? Also ask, how can I lose badly? Designing against catastrophic loss is often the path to durable gains. We must also be honest about trade-offs. Pursuing leverage and protecting gains means postponing some consumption and maybe some immediate social gratifications. That's real. But it's not eternal austerity. The right trade is to delay status for a period so you can buy actual freedom later. Imagine 2 futures. One where you keep upgrading consumption with each payday and always live close to the margin. And one where you delay upgrades long enough to build an asset base that gives you optionality. The latter offers the chance to choose how to live instead of being forced by cash flow. Now, what about the predators? The people and schemes that prey on early success. They aren't always obvious. Predators wear advice. They sell narratives, fast returns, insider tips, exclusive opportunities. They tend to approach when your ego is high. Your defense is simple. Apply the checklist, demand transparency, check for conflicts of interest, and never let social pressure be the reason you commit capital. If someone tells you this is a limited time offer and you won't get another chance, that's a rhetorical lever designed to bypass your protocols. Ignore it. Successful people build buffers around their attention and money precisely to stay immune to that persuasion. Let's look at the danger of lifestyle inflation through a short vignette that will feel painfully familiar. Marcus gets promoted. His first instinct, he deserves better. So he upgrades his apartment, leases a nicer car, and buys an expensive set of furniture. 6 months later, a project is canceled. He's now locked into fixed costs that consume his buffer. Marcus didn't fail at work. He failed at pacing. The fix would have been simple. Allocate half the raise to savings and half to tasteful improvements that didn't lock him into large fixed costs. It's boring. It works. Contrast that with Laura, who on a similar raise takes half into an investment account, uses a small portion to subscribe to a course that improves her negotiation skill and increases her networking efforts. 2 years later, she has multiple independent income channels and options to pivot. She built leverage while maintaining mobility. This contrast illustrates one of the cruel realities. Early success can be converted into long-term freedom, or it can become a trap. Which outcome you get is almost entirely about rules and immediate behavior. We've covered habits, automation, the 90-day plan, guardrails, emotional protocols, and predator defense. The remaining piece is the moment of choice, the personal ultimatum you must give yourself. This is neither theatrical nor moralistic. It's surgical. It is a decision to value directional correctness over futile motion. Here is the ultimatum, phrased as a commitment you can sign for yourself. Say it aloud or write it. I will treat my time as an asset and my money as a lever. I will automate my future before I spend my future. I will schedule thinking time and defend it like a meeting that cannot be canceled. I will apply the simple guardrails that protect early gains. I will build, test, and repeat. I will treat success as a test, not a reward. If that commitment feels possible, then you have a path. If it feels impossible because of constraints in your life, identify the one constraint. Write down how you will reduce it and take one step now. To help you operationalize this ultimatum, here is a compact 30, 60, 90-day checklist you can follow exactly or adapt to your circumstances. Days 1-30. Foundations. Open a dedicated savings investment account. Automate a transfer of at least 5 to 10% of income. Cancel one subscription. Schedule 2 weekly thinking hours and block them. Do one 48-hour delay on any purchase over your threshold. Read one book on a high-leverage skill or complete one course module. Days 31-60. Build. Use your weekly thinking hours to create a minimal product or service that solves a tiny problem for a narrow audience. Pilot it with 5 people and get feedback. Increase your automated transfer by the amount of one canceled subscription. Keep building repeatable habits. Daily micro-reflection, weekly review. Days 61-90. Scale and protect. Automate any income increase into savings and build capital to test a modest growth channel for your product or service. Ads, partnerships, referral incentives. Ensure your emergency fund covers at least 3 months. Evaluate what gave you the most leverage and double down. Identify one social or psychological pressure that tempts you to inflate and design a guardrail against it. Those are not heroic changes. They are small, consistent, and repeatable. They are designed to be boring until they work, and they will work if you keep at them. Before we close, one final mental model to carry forward. Think in terms of options. Every dollar you save, every hour you protect, is an option you can exercise later. Options are valuable because they let you choose under better circumstances. Buying a flashy lifestyle is like selling options for immediate pleasure. Buying leverage and protection is like collecting options you can exercise when opportunities appear. Over time, options compound. The person with options gets to choose when to take risk. The person who sold those options for comfort works forever. This is, at base, what Charlie Munger-style thinking encourages: invert, reduce stupidity, build systems, and tilt the odds with rational rules rather than faith in luck. Nothing here is exciting in the moment. It is, however, profoundly effective. Direction matters more than effort. Asymmetric moves built through repetition and protected by guardrails beat frantic motion every time. Now make your first move. Pick one of the scripts I gave you. Start the 7-day automation sprint or the decision stop checklist. Set a calendar reminder for 2 hours of thinking this week, and don't let anyone take that slot. Then choose one recurring cost to cancel right now and put that money into an automated transfer. If you do nothing else, automate. Make the boring choice the default. Let the machine of compounding work around your fatigue and your vanity. Over months, tiny mechanical actions will add up to a life you control rather than a life that controls you. If this message landed, if it cracked something open in you, do one practical thing. Go to the description below and download the Munger-style checklist I've prepared. 1 page, simple rules, the 30-60-90 plan, and the decision stop checklist. Use it this week. If you want to go deeper, watch the companion video on asymmetry and compounding next. It will give you the mental models and examples that make these principles click. You don't have to quit your job or become austere overnight. You do have to stop confusing motion with progress. Choose direction, build simple systems, protect what you earn, and remember, the world doesn't reward hours, it rewards scaled correctness. Make your hours work for you, not the other way around.